You ever feel completely, totally stuck on a creative project? It's like this emotional fog rolls in, and you know you need to move forward, but you just can't find the path. Well, today we're going to dive into this really fascinating story about a filmmaker who was right there in that fog. And what's wild is how she used the logic of an AI search engine to decode her own mind and, yeah, break right through it. This was the question, right? This was the thing at the very heart of her crisis. She had this deeply emotional project in front of her, but she just couldn't connect with the story she was supposed to tell. And for any creator out there, you know that's a paralyzing feeling. And she found one single word that just captured it all. Not empty, not even sad, just numb. That feeling of being totally disconnected, unable to process or communicate the flood of emotions she was supposed to be working with. Okay, so what was this project? What was the assignment that triggered such a massive internal crisis? Let's get into the call that sent our filmmaker tumbling into this emotional abyss. So the project was intense right from the get-go. She had to make this short, super impactful film about the loneliness the elderly face, and get this, it was set to premiere in front of policymakers at Parliament. But as she started visiting her subjects, filming them in their homes, she had this stark, terrifying realization that one day, the four walls of our own homes might become the final boundary of our existence. And that glimpse into a future of stillness just completely silenced her. So, trying to find some clarity, she actually looked into the word itself, numb. Turns out, it comes from the Latin word numbus, which means a cloud or a mist. And that just described her state perfectly, right? She was completely lost in an emotional fog, a feeling of stuckness that was stopping her dead in her tracks. The word itself felt like a trap. So, since she couldn't find her way through this emotional fog, she turned to a really unlikely place for inspiration: the cold, hard logic of technology. The question became, could the way a machine thinks help her understand the way she feels? And this was her big aha moment. A search engine can't find something that isn't properly labeled or structured, right? So she thought, what if our minds work the same way? What if that feeling of numbness was really just her brain's error message for trying to process a huge flood of untagged, unstructured emotion? This one idea just opened up a whole new way of looking at things. She started to draw these incredible parallels. Her mind wasn't some mysterious fog anymore. It was a content compass. And her feelings? They were data. Suddenly, data mining became emotional mining. It wasn't about being lost anymore. It was about running a search query on her own feelings. All right, so she's got this new framework, this new mindset. But what do you actually do with that? Well, she developed a really practical step-by-step method to apply this algorithmic thinking to her own emotional world. She was turning this abstract idea into a real tool to get from that fog to focus. It's like she created a search algorithm, but for her soul. The whole process kicked off with her reflex word, numb. From there, she built out a cluster of related terms, like fog, stuck, blank. And then, just like a good search engine, she started to refine her keywords, filtering out the noise to really narrow in on the core issue. And as she followed this trail, she brought back the word stuckness, because it so perfectly mirrored the situation of the elderly people she was filming. But that led her to an even more powerful keyword: petrified. This wasn't just being stuck anymore. This was being frozen solid, like a statue. And that word, petrified, it unlocked this incredibly potent visual in her mind. The feeling of a poisoned thorn that was just lodged deep inside her, blocking all her emotional clarity, blocking her ability to even breathe. She knew she was getting closer to the source, but she still couldn't see what the thorn actually was. Sometimes your own internal search hits a wall, and you need an external link, a piece of outside content to make the connection. For her, that link was literature. Reading Tolstoy's classic work about mortality, it was like the final click in her search. It connected all the dots and lit up the root cause of her pain. And there it was. That was the root of the thorn. It wasn't just about some fear of the future. It was a trauma from her past. A really brutal death of an elderly person in her own family that she had never, ever fully processed. By treating her emotions like searchable data, she finally managed to dig up this evil seed, the painful memory that was poisoning her entire creative well. So once she had pulled out that thorn, once she excavated that trauma, everything changed. And it wasn't just that she finished the film, she came away from the whole experience with this powerful new framework for understanding and communicating emotion. I mean, just look at the difference. After she cleared that block, it was like a whole new emotional dictionary opened up for her. Those heavy, negative words were replaced by words filled with warmth, with resilience, with humanity. These were the words she finally needed to tell her story. And this is the real magic of her journey. She developed a repeatable system, a personal map for her own inner world, a structured vocabulary that lets her navigate, tag, and communicate complex feelings, not just for this one project, but for any creative challenge she might face. You know, her incredible personal story actually points to a much bigger lesson, one that really applies to all of us who are trying to create and communicate in this digital age. Because the truth is, we're not just telling stories to one kind of audience anymore. What she really stumbled upon is this new art form, this challenge we all face now, dual storytelling. Our stories, our narratives, they have to connect with the messy, beautiful chaos of human hearts, for sure. But they also have to be structured in a way that the algorithms that pretty much run our digital lives can understand and share them. And that leaves all of us with a pretty big question to think about. As we're creating and writing and sharing, are we consciously thinking about both of those audiences? Maybe, just maybe, by learning to structure our own internal stories a little better, we can become better storytellers for both the humans and the machines that are shaping our world.